the Mission Dorothy podcast with your hostess, Tamekis Williams. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today here at the Mission Dorothy podcast. Today, I would like for us to dive deep into 5 steps to an authentic and effective self image. So, as you know, we've been working on basically learning how to live authentically and living purposefully. And we've completed the 6 pillars of self-esteem, where if you implement those, you're sure to increase your quality of life. But they are also 6 ways for you to reconnect with your authentic self. And so today we want to connect with our authentic self and the self image that we hold, right? So when we think about being our authentic self, that means that we have an image of ourselves. The problem comes in is when we have an image of ourselves, but we're not walking in that image, right? For whatever reasons that may be, um, we will say, that we have, let's just say if we, have service as one of our core values, but we don't volunteer, right? Or if you're having an issue with, possibly coming out, but you are afraid, so therefore you're living a closeted life, right? So your authentic self is who you really are, not the person you've created, your parents created, life has created, due to situations, circumstances, and beliefs, right? And so if we think about our self image, this is the way that you view yourself, right? You may view yourself as a parent. You may view yourself as a, you know, honest and loving person. You may view yourself as a friend, a wife, a girlfriend, all of these different roles, right? You may see yourself as being intelligent, impatient, a middle-aged woman, a career driven man. Um, you know, you may see yourself in so many different ways, but you have to understand that you're so much more than just these roles and societal identities, right? You're so much more than anybody else's opinion of you. So, the beauty, just when it comes to our creation, even if we were to look at just the fingerprints, or if we took the example of two twins, even though they may be identical, their fingerprints are different, right? And so that is one of the things that makes them unique. But of course, their personality, their core values, morals, those types of things can make them unique too. And then we also know that with identical twins, one could possibly have a mole on their chin and the other one don't, right? Okay, that probably wasn't the best analogy, but you get what I'm saying. So I want you to know that you are a unique person with your own nuances, and that is what makes you unique, right? I was talking with a client, and she has a gap in between her teeth. And she said that as a little child, a little girl, she always would press her mother to get her braces and those types of things. And her mother told her, no, like, why would you want to close that? This is what makes you unique. So I think her mother also had a gap, and I think some other members in her family had it as well. But she said that it wasn't until recent, like as an adult woman, when, when she was able to embrace her gap in between her teeth. It was no longer this issue, this problem, this stressor, this self-esteem dimmer, right? This it was more of her uniqueness, what makes her, unique from other people, what helps her to stand out, what made her comfortable about herself, what made her feel, different from other people, but in a positive way, right? So we're all unique in our own ways, right? So um when we think about living authentically, this means that when you are in line with what you do, you're living authentically, right? So when you're in line with that vision of yourself and you're walking that, you're talking that, that goes back to the six pillars of living, personal integrity, right? When you're walking your talk, but the thing is that most of us view ourselves in one way and then we live our life in another way. Authentic people act honestly and congruently, right? And I'm sorry, let me take that word back. It's not act, but authentic people move honestly and congruently. This is how they live their life. This is how they be, right? Their being is authentic, right? So when you meet someone and let's just say you've known this person for a very long time, I really feel that I do live authentically. I think that if you were to ask anybody that have known me for over 10 plus years, they will tell you that I am I've always been myself, right? Never had to put on for other people. I've just matured over the years, right? But I've always been Tamekis. Always been Tamekis, but I've matured and grown over the years. But my core self has always been present because I just never feel like I need to try to be somebody outside of me, right? So authentic people move, you know, in congruence, right? And the benefit of the congruency is it's enormous, right? It helps to build that self-esteem. It helps you to be successful in accomplishing your goals. It helps to give you inner peace. It reduces that self-doubt. It helps you to be open and honest with yourself as well as with others. It helps you to live a conscious life, right? Because you're not busy trying to put on mask, right? You're not busy trying to, switch up who you are in this setting and then put your authentic hat back on when you get home, and then when you go to work, you're another way when you're with a certain crowd, and then when you go to your desk, you return to your authentic self. It's like, man, I'm laughing because it's exhausting. And that's what I want you guys to get. Like, it's exhausting to try to be for other people. It's easier to be you, whether people like it or not. Because I need you to understand that even when you put those masks on, people are going to like it or not. So you might as well be yourself, right? Your people put masks on to be a different person around different people, but hey, you may not be accepted in that crowd with the mask on, right? You'll be judged eventually. So you might as well go ahead and just show up as yourself, right? And those who accept you, great, and those who don't, oh well. Because what we have to understand is that everybody is not your people. Okay? I'm exhausted of hearing people say, it's so hard to make friends. Is it? Like, is it really hard to make friends? Or is it hard to make friends while you have your mask on? right? Because if you got the mask on, then you can only fraternize with certain type of people according to your mask, right? But if you're your authentic self wherever you go, you have an opportunity to meet your people, right? You are, what's the right term? It's almost like you set yourself up for failure when you are, wearing multiple masks. And the sad part is that you don't even know it, right? Because the purpose of the mask is because you're not comfortable with who you are, right? So then you create this mask based off of what you think the people in that circle is going to accept and like. But what you don't understand is you can't hide all of your authentic self. It's going to sneak in there somewhere, right? It's going to show up because it's in the background. It ain't going to sit and just marinate back there in the background forever. It'll peek out here and there, right? And so when you're in these groups, you still have the chance of being judged, right? Put down, denied, overlooked, and not and not they may not still accept you fully, right? So why even go through all of that when you can just show up as yourself, and if they accept you, great, and if they don't, great. Move on and look for your people, right? All right. So, remembering that authentic living, authentic people move honestly and congruently. Everything adds up, right? They're consistent. Um, they ain't put on. They don't have to put on a show, any of that, right? So those who live misaligned with their lives, right? Similar to what I just talked about with the mask. Those who live misaligned with their values, their beliefs, and attitudes tend to suffer from more anxiety, right? Because now you anxious because am I going to expose myself? Are they going to accept me? You know, am I going to say the right things? Am I going to mess up and say something stupid? Am I going to do something crazy? Then you start to create this anxiety within because you're so nervous about, are you going to fit in, right? Then you start to experience some guilt and some shame when you're living misaligned, right? When you're not in tune with your authentic self, right? When you are working opposite of your authentic self, right? So now you start to feel some shame and some guilt, right? That shame come in when you may do something embarrassing, or that shame and guilt can just be because you know that you are not presenting your real self, because you know you putting on for whoever, because you know that the way you're showing up in this environment or around these people is not really who you are. It's you not being able to keep up with all of the personas that you've created for yourself, and now they're starting to mix and mingle and show up in the wrong places, right? So now that mask that you intended to have on, you ended up putting on the wrong one, and now people being confused about who you are because you used to act this way, now you act that way, and it's like, well, why is she acting different, right? Like, you never know who gonna show up when she come. This is what your people saying in your group now, right? So when you're not living in alignment with who you really are, it does create that anxiety and that shame and that guilt, right? It might seem easier, to live up to the expectations of others in the short term, but in the long term, it costs you significantly, right? It decreases your self esteem, your self worth, just it further pulls you away from your authentic self, and then you start to not really know who you are in the first place, right? So it's important for us to do the work and really connect with who we really are, right? Especially when you get around that, early 20s. And this is that time in life when you're starting to create your own life and you're trying to figure out who you are, right? That journey really starts around 16, right? You start to figure out, you start to think about, okay, who am I? Where do I belong? What do I like? You really start looking at that, where's my place in this world kind of around 16. But when you step into them early 20s and you start to like really practice this adulthood and start um learning and creating and you know stirring up, that your adult self, right? It's important for you to really take that little time out to get to know who you are, because oftentimes we will carry stuff from our childhood, we'll carry stuff from, just our parents parenting style, and we will let that stuff, sometimes that stuff can really affect us in a negative way, right? But somewhere along the line you have to ask yourself, as I build this life for myself, what am I taking from those years and what am I leaving from those years, right? And that's when it comes, if we go back to the whole, value system, the core beliefs, the morals, like what morals and values are you going to take away from your um, cocoon life, right? As we think about that, when the whole life cycle of a butterfly, right? So in those, 0 to 18, 19, 20 years, it's like you're in the cocoon, right? And you are developing into this beautiful butterfly. And when you come out of this cocoon ready, what are you taking with you as you fly across this world in this journey of life? What are you taking with you? What are those core values and morals that are going to shine on your wings as you fly across this journey called life as a beautiful butterfly, right? I want you, y'all, all of you guys who are under um, 25, I want you to really sit and answer that question, right? Look back at that childhood. Look back at your upbringing. Look back at your morals and your values, the things that your parents taught you, the things that, pivotal people in your life have taught you, teachers, aunts, uncles, foster parents, sister, brothers, anybody, and decide what are you taking with you and what are you going to leave, right? And of course, if you've had a hard upbringing and you've been through some things and you're struggling with some things, of course, I'm going to suggest that you go ahead and do it and go to therapy for that, right? Go ahead and go to therapy as a opportunity for you to work through those things so that they don't hunt you in life, right? So that they don't show up in life later and wreck things. Okay? So make sure you take some time out to try to figure out try to work through those things so that you can be your authentic self and not become the person that your life situations have created, right? So let's talk about 5 steps that you can take in order to determine your true self and live life on your own terms. Okay? So that first one, the first step is that it's important for you to, like I just said, identify your core values, right? An authentic image is one that is aligned with your values, right? Your authentic self image is one that is aligned with your values. By knowing your values, you will gain an understanding of what is important to you, right? Once you're aware of your values, you can build a self image and life that are more meaningful and enjoyable, right? Because those core values and beliefs is like that foundation, right? It's like your the that's the foundation that you're building your house on, which the house is a representation of your life, right? So if your house is built on a, you know, rocky foundation, just a foundation that is not solid, then that house is not going to function properly, right? If that foundation is not solid, that house is not going to function properly. So, getting to know what are your core beliefs. So, if we were to think about core beliefs, there are several um, that you can choose. That you can choose from, or just kind of go back and just really think about, right? So, if we were to think about core beliefs, I want you to understand that authenticity is definitely one. How authentic are you, right? Another core belief can be being a compassionate person, right? Being able to have empathy for yourself as well as for other people, right? Another core belief could be just, being fair, right? Being a fair person, treating people fair, being fair to yourself, right? We can name a list of core beliefs. If we talked about faith, is your faith part of your core belief? Happiness, humor, right? Justice, kindness, leadership, loyalty, right? We could talk about love. We could talk about peace, respect, responsibility, self respect, right? Being trusting, right? It's so many different values that we could that we've probably been taught by our parents and those important people in our lives, or we could have just picked them up along the way based off of, if the opposite, right? So if you've had negative toxic parenting, if you've had just a hard life, and these issues and situations have taught you that to work toward the opposite, when it comes to your values. So if you were raised in a household where um, you know let's say if you was raised in a household where uh things was not as fair, right? If you had siblings and your parent had like I'm sorry, I'm getting so tongue tied. If your parents had like, if you felt like your parents favored one of your siblings, but you guys felt that everybody was not being treated fairly, right? So then you could say to yourself, well, you know what, as I grow up, I'm going to make sure that I treat people fairly, right? And let's say another core belief could be honesty. If you grew up, around a lot of people, especially when it comes to substance abuse, if you've grew up around substance abuse users, it can be a lot of lying going on, right? And so for you was negatively affected by all of the lying and the manipulation and the deceit that you've decided that one of your core values is going to be honesty, right? So as we think about it, I want to call out a list of core values, and you can kind of look at this list, or write this list down, and it can kind of jog some memory for you, or it can kind of help you look within to see if you have any of these core values. All right, so the core values are: we have authenticity, we have achievement, adventure, authority, autonomy, balance, beauty, boldness, compassion, challenge, community, citizenship, competency, contributions, creativity, curiosity, determination, fairness, faith, friendship, fun, fame, growth, happiness, honesty, humor, influence, inner harmony, justice, kindness, leadership, love, loyalty, meaningful work, optimism, peace, poise, recognition, religion, respect, security, service, spirituality, stability, wisdom, and trustworthiness. Okay? So you can think about those, because a lot of those core values that I just listed is part of, like, if you feel that you were born a leader. I cannot get my words right today. But if you were born a leader, right? A lot of those would fit into your core system, right? If you feel that you were born a leader, if you do a lot of leadership, um, volunteerism, or if that's what you do on your job, if you kind of lead in your friendships and relationships, those types of things, a lot of those core values will be in line with your authentic self, right? So sit down, take a minute, create your core value list, right? And make sure, create a long list and include everything that you think applies to you, right? So initially, I want you to sit down. I want you to identify your core values as that first step to, your authentic and effective self image, right? I want you to sit down and I want you to make a long list and include everything that you think applies to you. Then I want you to reduce your list to the 10 values that are most important to you, right? Now, as you do this, you're going to struggle a little bit trying to narrow this down. But it's important for you to narrow this long list down because this will get you closer to understanding who you are, what your core values are, and how you plan to live authentically, right? This is that groundwork. Remember, this is your foundation. So you take this long list of, maybe a good 20 or 30, and then you narrow that down to 10 core values, right? Because once you get to those 10, then the hope is that you can start really seeing more of who you really are. See, when you first start and you do this whole 30 core list, a lot of that stuff is not really true, right? There might be 1% of you, 2% of you. It might be part of you when you have a certain mask on, that type of thing. But by the time you reduce that list down to 10, right? And these are 10 core values that have nothing to do with anybody else's view of you, right? This is your view of what is most important to you. Now, what's most important to you based off of what your parents think, your husband, your wife, your friends, your boyfriend, none of that. This is you, right? So please keep that in mind. Not what people tell you, but what you feel is most important to you at the ground level have always been or have been mostly for the majority of your life, right? All right. So that's step 1, identify your core values. Now, step 2 is determine if you have any conflicts, right? So, for example, you might say that adventure and freedom are two of your most important values, right? But what if you also strongly favor responsibility and security? Those values could be in conflict, right? So if we look at adventure, so adventure means, just kind of flowing with the wind, free spirited. It is what it is, right? But then if you say responsibility is also a core value, they kind of don't match up because responsibility means structure and being conscious and aware and owning up to things, right? If we were to look at freedom versus security, they're kind of two opposites as well. Not to say that they all can't be in your list, but you just have to clearly define how they show up in your value system, right? So for freedom and security, well, we know freedom. If we just think about being in jail and being free, right? Okay, that was not the best analogy. But freedom and security, right? So freedom could be that you just want to be free to live your life accordingly and live life how you want to live and be free with your money and spending and all of those types of things. But then if you're saying security and you want to be financially secure and all of that, then you're going to have to be mindful of how you spend and are you saving and, are you creating that security nest for, if something should happen, you will have the funds to be able to hopefully handle it, right? But if you're free with your money, then that means that you're probably not being the best steward of your dollars, right? Your coins, right? So just be mindful of that. Determine if you have any conflicts in that list, right? So when you faced I'm sorry, okay. So just determine if you have any conflicts there. All right? Now, when you're faced with an inner conflict, you likely would, kind of shut down or do nothing, right? So when you're having that conflict within and it's becoming difficult, then oftentimes we'll shut down, right? So, even when you're having this, because this is not going to be as easy as you think. Not if you really being real with yourself. Not if you're really considering all that you really need to take into heed when you create this list, right? Because we're talking about your core value system, what you are walking on, standing strong for, willing to fight for, what, this is who you are, what makes you up, why you make the decisions you make, why you move the way you move, why you flow the way you flow, right? So oftentimes when we have an inner conflict, it'll get hard. We'll start getting confused, frustrated, irritated, aggravated, and then we'll shut down, and then we'll do nothing. Right? And so, if you've ever been paralyzed while making a decision, it's possible your values were in conflict, right? So think about that. If you've ever had to make a decision, right? So let's just say that you had the opportunity to between two jobs, right? One of your jobs was paying, maybe 15,000 more, but the other job would give you the skill sets that you need in order to further your career and move you toward achieving your goal, right? So in that, we're looking at possibly a conflict, right? Do I go for the money, or do I go for the potential to learn skill sets that will last a lifetime, right? So that's a hard one, right? Especially if money is tight right now, and you are just kind of making it check to check. That job that will pay you 15,000 more is going to be it's going to look really enticing, right? But all you're getting is the 15,000 plus. You're not really going to get the skill sets that you really need in order for you to go over and possibly build your own business, right? But then if we were to look at the job that will give you the skill sets that you need, that will give you the experience you need in order for you to be able to move ahead in your career and hopefully get you to, if you wanted to be an entrepreneur, get you to be able to open up your own business. Which one is more important? Because to me, I would say the skill set job, right? Because what you're receiving from that will be skills that nobody can ever take away from you, right? Those skills will help you to be able to get jobs, move up in the hierarchy of management. And when you're moving up, the money comes, right? But oftentimes a lot of people don't really go that deep with it. They'll just see, oh, this job pay 15,000 more, I'm taking this one. Then you get on that job, you're pissed, you're upset, you get right back to the point of being sad and unfulfilled on your job, and it's like you're not getting the skill sets that you need. There's no movement and moving up on this job. All you getting is $15,000 extra, but the thing is you getting taxed on that 15, so you really ain't getting 15,000. Right? So, anywho, as you create your list and if you come up with a conflict, really sit and work through that. Do the pros, do the cons. Like, think about yourself as a child when it comes to that value. Think about the last time this value showed up in your life. Think about how often the two values show up for you, right? Think about um, when you've struggled to make a decision and see if it's, you know, the last time you struggled with these same core values. Like, just think about how often do you struggle with these core values, right? All I'm asking is, as you create this list, give yourself some time to really think deep, because this is you saying, this is what I am made up of, right? If it gets hard, if you find that you have a conflict within your list, please take the time to work it through. Don't get frustrated or say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to go with this 10. No, really work it out, because if you don't, it is going to continue to show up in your life as a conflict. Okay? Now, do you have any values listed that aren't really priorities for you? That is the next question that I want you to ask yourself, right? So you're going to create your list, you're going to look for conflict, and then you're going to ask yourself, do you have any values listed that aren't really priorities for you? Reason being is because we often carry around perspectives instilled by our parents, right? I talked about that earlier. And the news flash is they may have been wrong, right? Of course, as parents, we are going to work to try to teach our kids what we feel is important to us and what we feel will be important in their lives. But it's important for you to take the time out to figure out what is important for your life right now, right? Millennials are totally different than any other generation that has come before them. And as parents, we do have to consider that. And sometimes, we stick to our old school methods, but old school is not always working for the new school. And that may not feel good as parents, but we do have to take that into consideration. Everything that worked for us may not work for our kids or our young adult kids. Our young adults, right? So we have to take that into consideration. So it's important for you to take it into consideration too. Even though they meant well, you have to really make sure that these 10 core beliefs is coming from your heart, your voice, your thoughts, your beliefs, and not anybody else's. Okay? So make sure that you take time to determine your values for yourself. Disregard what society says you should value, right? Because at the end of the day, you're an individual. Yes, you are part of this society, but you are also a individual within this society. So your job is to show society what your worth is and not to allow society to define what your worth is. Okay? So let's move on to step number 3. Step number 3 is, once you have created your core value list, once you have worked to identify any conflicts, once you have cleared out any of your intrusive um, values that come from other people, then I want you to take that 10 core value list and create an action plan for each value. Okay? How do you do that, Tamekis? Okay, here's how. So, imagine one of your core values is being frugal, right? You like to look for the discounts. You like to be smart with your money. You like to save your money. You like to really be conscious and mindful of how you spend, right? So, your action plan would be that you could create a budget and savings plan that incorporates that value, right? So if you're frugal and you really want to work to save for your retirement, for your emergency fund, save for whatever it is that you want to save for, then you can create a budget for that and you can create a savings plan in order to match and align with this value of being frugal, right? You might plan to start clipping coupons. You could visit less expensive stores, and you could search for free entertainment options as well, right? So you are taking each one of your core values and you're creating an action plan on how you plan to utilize this core value in your life, or how you already utilize this core value in your life, right? So if we talk about responsibility as a core value, then your action plan is to sit back and think about all of the behaviors that you currently have that are not really responsible behaviors, right? If you're going out and getting ripped, um, you know, to the point to where you're falling and can't stand up and you just can't really hold your alcohol, and is that being responsible, right? If you the chick at the club and you falling all on the floor, and you putting yourself in some situations, is that really being responsible? Now don't get me wrong, we all like to go out and have a good time, I'll say probably in my back in the day, I've I know I've had some good times in my lifetime, right? But is this your regular though, or is this just a few? If you look back on your partying, is has it been like less than you can count? You can count them on one hand, right? And I'm not excusing even if it was less than five, it's still being irresponsible to get that drunk and you're falling all on the floor and you don't know what's going on. But to keep it real, um, it happens, right? It happens to some people. You just end up getting a little bit uh, too crunk, or sometimes it's you done been through something and you are trying to unwind and end up unwinding a little bit too much, right? So I ain't judging, is what I'm saying. I ain't saying I'm perfect either, but all that, when you get to a certain age, you do have to be mindful of how responsible you choose to be, right? And so, and this is just an example, right? So I'm just saying, if responsibility is one of your core values, we can all be very responsible in our life, but we may have areas where we do slip up in, right? So I'm not saying that if responsibility is your core value, then you got to be responsible all the time. Nobody is perfect. But if responsibility is your core value, then you really do need to work to be as responsible as you possibly can, right? That should not be a every weekend thing. That should not be something that happens rather often. If you're responsible, this is you when you get paid, you go ahead and you pay your bills first, and then you can go and eat out or go buy you something from the mall or go hang with your girls or whatever. The fun can happen, but being responsible is paying your bills first, right? Being responsible is, you know, making sure that you're putting yourself in um just making sure that you're being safe, right? And you're not putting yourself in situations. I don't know what's going on, y'all. It's Sunday, so work with me. But if you're putting yourself in situations where it could be dangerous, how responsible is that? right? It's a lot going on right now. You got a lot of sex trafficking. They saying they got this new thing out right now where they're saying about something about kidnapping women and trying to take their uterus and so that it can be implanted in like somebody else or guys or something so they can have babies. I mean, it's just getting real crazy out here, right? So, are you being responsible with your surroundings? Are you putting yourself in situations where it could be dangerous, right? So, if responsibility is one of your core values, check and see just how responsible you are in different areas of your life financially, right? Emotionally, um, socially, right? Mentally, spiritually, right? Thinking about all those different areas of your life, how responsible are you being in those areas? Okay. So let's just go back and catch up here. So, step one, right? We're talking about those 5 steps to an authentic and effective self image. That step one is creating your list of 30 core values, and then you're going to work to decrease that down to 10, right? And within those 10, you're going to look for conflicts. And if you have any conflicts, make sure that you take the time to work those through. And then once you have your core 10, you are going to um, make sure that these are 10 core values that you believe in and not 10 that is coming from an outside voice, right? Then you're going to take your final core 10 and you're going to look at those and you're going to create an action plan on how you plan to move within each one of these values, right? Step number 4 is I want you to make a list of activities you enjoy that are in alignment with your values, right? So you're going to think about what activities could I do that is in line with my value. If we go back to the frugality, then that could be the couponing, right? That could be taking a class in couponing, going on Udemy to see if they have a class in couponing, right? So an example is, let's just say if generosity is a priority, you can find an enjoyable way to spend your time with helping other people, volunteering, right? Giving back in some form or fashion. If you're a hairstylist, maybe, doing someone's hair, going to a women's shelter and maybe volunteering your services there once a month, right? If it is possibly writing a check to a nonprofit and blessing them, every 6 months, right? So that's how you would use your core value of generosity, right? Now, in this, I want you to remember that with generosity is you have to have balance, right? Because um, you don't want to give so much of yourself to where you're then sacrificing more of yourself than need be, right? And I mean this in a non-healthy way. Okay. So another example would be if health is a value you cherish, right? Then you could go and you can join the gym or you can go to a yoga class or a line dancing class, right? So you can go and take a class on nutrition. You can, um, start researching and reading up on how to stay healthy and, making sure that you are creating um, um, a healthy lifestyle for yourself, right? And so you would be, taking your vitamins, making sure you're getting your checkups every year, getting your eye exams and all those types of things. But, just making sure that health is a priority for you on a regular basis, right? So That's step number 4. Make a list of activities you enjoy that are in align with your values. Okay. Step 5 will be you're going to evaluate yourself at the end of each day, right? So after you've created the list, after you've narrowed it down, after you've made sure that this is a list from your voice, after you've made sure that there's no conflict and you've um, created your action plan, and then you started to assign activities that you can use for each value, then you're going to evaluate yourself. Once you start to put this in motion, right? So once you create your the activity list, then I want you to start implementing, right? Implement your list, implement your values. Make sure each day, kind of check in with yourself to see, are you incorporating your values in your everyday life, right? Because my God, if we took this list of 10 of your core values and you utilize the 6 pillars of self-esteem, man, whew, you talking about living authentically. Stop it. Yes. That is exactly where we're working to go, right? This is what I really want you to really work hard at trying to achieve, right? Is living as your authentic self, right? So you're going to start implementing that activity list, and then you're going to start evaluating yourself at the end of each day. So this is you thinking about the instances when you failed to live accordingly to your values, right? And likewise, contemplate the times when you've been able to live according to your values and self-image, right? Particularly when you're doing so um I'm sorry, especially when you've been challenged, right? When your core beliefs and values have been challenged. Like, I want you to think about all of that. I want you to think about how were you not being self responsible when it comes to utilizing your core values each day? How were you being self responsible in utilizing your core values? How were you, having that in personal integrity when it comes to making sure that you're utilizing these core values? And I'm not saying that the core values, all 10, are going to come up every day, but each day, take time out to assess, take time out to assess whether you want to do it each day or maybe at the end of the week, but each day, take time out to assess if you are walking your talk, right? If you are walking in that personal integrity and you're utilizing these values when need be, right? On a regular basis. Okay? And think about moments that your core beliefs have been challenged. Did you stand up for them? Right? Did you stand up for them? That's the question that you need to ask yourself when you think about your core values. If they were challenged, did you stand up for them, or did you take the passive role and said nothing? Did nothing, right? So you're evaluating yourself at the end of each day or at the end of each week to see just how in line are you with your values and with them showing up in your life each day, right? So, we're this whole episode today is once again you working to live authentically, create a self image that is aligned with your values, right? And this is not you creating a whole nother self. This is you doing a self assessment to see if you have been walking in your values, if you know them. This is also a self assessment for you to assess to see if you know your values. And if you don't, it's time for you to take time out for that, because they can change over time. Certain things that were important to you in one time in your life may not be as important to you in your 40s as it was in your 20s, right? So you're working to create that self image that is aligned with your values, right? First, it is necessary to identify and choose your values, right? Which is what you're doing in step one. You're choosing those core 10. Then, next, construct a life that allows you to live those values consistently and to thrive. So, then you're looking at activities and ways that you can incorporate your values in your everyday life, right? You know, at the end of the day, and what I want you guys to get out of this is that authenticity eliminates many of the common emotional ailments in life, right? But it's not always the easiest choice. It's not always easy to be your authentic self. It's not. Sometimes we think that, we would probably be better off if we put on save face a little bit in order to um, fit in, connect, network. But at the end of the day, it's hard work trying to keep up personas, right? But when you're living authentically and you're walking in your authentic self, that's not something you have to even worry about. You just being, right? You're not constantly trying to create a different version of yourself. You're just being. You're being who God created you to be as a human being, right? So, once again, that overview is, as we end this episode, the 5 steps to an authentic and effective self image. You're creating your core value list of a good 30 or 20. Then you're going to narrow that down to 10 of the most important ones that you see show up in your life regularly, or that you would like to show up in your life regularly, those that are most important. Then you're going to look for conflicts and work through those conflicts. You're going to make sure that these values are coming from your voice and not somebody else's voice. You're going to then create an action plan and find ways to allow your values to show up each day. Walking in alignment. So if being frugal is your thing, then you are going to work to budget, to save, to maybe clip some coupons, look for the sale rack. Look, let me tell you something. Now, there are certain things that I will spend some money on, right? And really, these are little minor things, but I'll spend some money on some perfume because I just love aromatherapy is my thing. It works so well for me mentally, emotionally, and it just speaks to my femininity, right? But also, I'll pay for some good food too, because I like to eat. I do. But when I say I will go in the store and I look for the sale rack first, okay? Not last, but when I walk in the store, I'm looking for the sale rack and I'm going to go look there first, right? Because the sister love to save $1, okay? But also, I know that I work hard. I know that I am a responsible person with my coins, and I really don't mind spending on myself because I think I work hard enough to do so, right? But I also understand that just because I got the money don't mean that I just gotta blow it, right? I want to be responsible with that money, right? So you're creating that action plan. Then you're going to make a list of activities that will align with your values, right? So if health is your thing, that is you going to the gym, that is you working out at home, joining a yoga class, maybe a line dance class, maybe learning how to eat healthy, going for walks in the park, getting the kids out and kind of taking them to the park and playing with them, taking your vitamins, going to the doctor regularly, those type of activities, right? That will be in line with with your values. Then you're going to evaluate yourself either at the end of the day or you can do it at the end of the week. But if you decide to go throughout the week and wait till the end of the week to evaluate yourself, please make some notes throughout the week, right? If you notice that your values have been challenged, if you notice that you've done a great job in incorporating your values, and if had a couple of fails there when it comes to your values, just make you some quick notes so that you can refer to those when you sit down to do your evaluation at the end of the week. You don't want to forget, right? And so, like I said, at the end of the day, we know that authenticity, like I said, it eliminates many of the common emotional ailments in life. Like, it helps with building your self-esteem. But when you're not walking in authenticity, it also creates anxiety. It can create some depression and some self-doubt. And so the goal here is that we understand that it is not always the easiest choice. So if you are a person who loves like Comic-Con or anime, but most of your friends love like trap music and um, you know hanging out or something that's totally different from that, own that. If you like trap music and hanging out, but you also love anime and Comic Con, okay, own that. You don't have to hide that element of yourself. Be authentic in that, right? If you don't like, the trap music and all that, but you're trying to hang with this group because you think it's cool and all this and all this type of stuff, you need to sit back and realize that maybe these people are not your people, right? If you got to put a face on, if you got to create a persona in order to be with this group, maybe you need to go and find your people. Go find other people who like anime and Comic-Con and that type of thing. I'm not saying everybody that you like have to do all the same things you like to do, but it does feel good to have people in your circle who do have some of the same likes. We all connect in different ways, right? You can be a young lady who has decided to walk first in your faith, but you can still hang with your friends because why? They respect that is your choice. So they're not going to ask you, do you want a drink? Right? But they do respect you as a person, right? And they're not disrespecting your choice when it comes to your beliefs, your values, right? So it's not going to be easy, but it's necessary. Okay? So at the end of the day, I want you to be bold enough to choose the person you really are and live accordingly. The benefits are enormous. Okay? So please leave your comments. I would love to hear what you guys think. Create your list. Let me know how things are going. I am on Facebook as Mission Dorothy. I am on Instagram as Mission Dorothy, and let me know how things are going. All right. At the end of the day, the benefits are enormous. Trust, it's not easy, but once you get comfortable in your own shoes, I'm telling you, the benefits are enormous. All right? So until next time, I want you guys to really work hard at being your authentic self and really take the time out to do this work. Once again, we can sit and I can talk all day, you can listen all day, but if you don't put this work to use, then it won't be beneficial. right? And I'm sure that a lot of you guys are tired of having to carry all of these personas. How about you just choose to show up as you? And those that don't accept you don't need to be in your life in the first place. And those that accept you, awesome. I'm telling you, it feels good. And it's very freeing. It releases the self doubt. It helps you to trust your voice and your decisions. So do the work. All right. So until our next episode, live authentically. Bye.